Are you waiting on a lightning strike? Are you waiting for the perfect night?
Hi, this is michellevanetten, and thank you for tuning in today to Unstoppable Angels, where we turn our pain into power and become unstoppable. Today's guest is Bonnie Laslo. Bonnie is a self-made real estate millionaire who became financially free at 23 and made her first million at 26. Currently 46, living her passion and creating a beautiful life and legacy. Bonnie, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Wonderful.
So great to have you on.
Thanks
Bonnie
for
and I
having
know
me.
each other from leadership, and we had such an amazing connection right off the bat. And I really wanted to share her story with you because I think that what she has gone through and came out absolutely rock star, amazing, and just killing it in the real estate world will really give you a little bit of insight in what it takes and how you can rise above anything in life. So Bonnie, let's go back a little ways. So tell me where you're from and give us a little backstory.
Let's see. I am a military brat. So I was actually born in Athens, Greece, and my mother is from Thailand. My father was in the military, retired major, and pretty much traveled all over the place. And I've, I guess I can't really say I'm really from anywhere, but I've been in Arkansas, Arizona, Florida, New Jersey, so all kinds of different places touring around. So as a kid, let's just say I learned how to make friends real fast.
You were always on the move?
Yes, always on the move.
So during that time when you're on the move, so how long did that last?
I did get him to stop in high school because that's whenever I actually got my first real boyfriend. And that was, obviously a 5-year relationship. And I pretty much told my dad, I'm like, look, I need a little bit of stability in my life here because it's now high school. And I believe that he might have actually even used that as an excuse not to go someplace else because we happen to be in Tampa, Florida. You know what I mean? So the military base there is what they call the vacation military base. So I think I was able to, win that argument because of the location of that military base as well.
I know Tampa, Florida very well. I'm in Apollo Beach. We've been here now about 15 years. So I understand it is vacation central and I'm absolutely on board with that. Yeah. So I know you told me about a time in your life. So you had to be much younger that you actually ended up dealing with the foster care system.
Yes. So let's see here. Let's just say that my childhood, my father, he really likes, subordinate Asian women. Right. And, I turned out anything but, I would say. So it's funny because as growing up and my dad, and that dynamic of seeing what was going on in the household, there was definitely, not exactly normalness going on. And I'm a kid, so I don't know that this isn't normal. Other than television, I'm thinking television is television. What's going on in my household and what's going on in my friends' households are more of what reality is, right? And so I did end up coming home a little bit late because I was supposed to come home when the lights turned down, right, came on the streets. And so when I came home, I kind of got, let's say, beaten with the lovely belt. I was called, going around in circles. And so when that happened, it's not my first time having, that happen to me, of course. I'm a kid. But I guess it left bruises on me. And when I went back to school the next day, my teacher saw it because I was wearing a dress. And so I was pulled aside. They asked me what happened. And I'm like, yeah, got my ass beat, right? So, I mean, it's one of those situations where I didn't know that was a wrong thing, right? Because my friends get spankings, I get spankings, that kind of thing. But apparently it was, I guess I can't see behind me, you know what I mean? So the way it must have looked on my legs and on my backside and stuff was enough for them to call in the police, to pretty much put me into foster care at that point. And I was very fortunate enough, I don't know how this worked out, but there was a family that I actually knew from one of my neighborhood friends or something like that. I don't know exactly. I don't remember because it was so young, but I ended up staying with them for 2 years. And I'll tell you what, that was one of the best experiences ever because I knew what was actually normal at that point in time. But going through, that and seeing all the fighting, I mean, we had a situation where a woman that my dad was dating came after him with a knife and cut, the mattress up and everything. So like all this kind of stuff that was going on in my childhood, I kind of thought was normal. I didn't really realize that it wasn't until I went to foster care and, was able to be heard. And they were explaining to me why I was there, if that makes any sense. Because I really didn't understand why I wasn't going there or wasn't going back home. But of course I was happy, at that point. So
you were learning what true love was.
Yeah,
because you were learning what true love was, what it, like what it should be and how it does feel. When you say subordinate, how did that end up playing a part? If he was spanking you like that, did you see other things that were violent and other things that were troubling?
Yeah. And I remember there was one time that we were coming home from church and I don't know what happened, but there was arguing going on. By the time we got home, my mom actually had been hit in the face and was bleeding pretty badly. And I remember getting out of the car and going to the neighbor's house when that happened. And the police came, of course. But yeah, those types of things were pretty
common.
That was a bad one. Like that with them was pretty, bad, and they were hiding it. I could hear, it inside of the rooms and stuff, but that was a bad one. And that was in front of a lot of people. So, it happens, unfortunately. And
obviously there was a few things that ended up putting you in foster care. There was multiple times that the cops were called, and it wasn't just the first incident that obviously.
No. And I have a feeling that there was also a diary that the teacher would have us journal in. And I remember finding it as an adult, and I don't even remember half the crap that was written in there.
Wow. That's a really big thing. I mean, seriously, wow. I think all teachers should learn from that. Have the kids at a young age do a diary, because, they took creative writing out of school, which I think is absolutely insane, because that's where kids will actually tell you the truth. Yeah. They'll write a lot of the truth in there and let you know a little bit more about what's going on. Yeah. So you're living with a foster family. And life is showing you a totally different world. You're starting to see what life should be like. You're being talked to and having conversations with, instead of being talked at and punished for, as far as from what I can tell. You were there for 2 years. What happened?
It was the first time I saw normalness, like eating at a dinner table, right? Doing family outings, doing family trips. And they actually attempted to adopt me, but my mother did tell my dad, she's like, pretty much, I will kill you if you lose my daughter. And she probably would have. So I look back on it today and I'm just like, I remember when it was happening, it was horrible because I had no voice. I was being forced to get put back into that situation. It's like going from a heavenly place and then going back to hell. You know what I mean? And not being able to make those choices of being able to stay where I wanted to stay or do what I wanted to do. And being forced to, in essence, live in a space that wasn't supportive. It was very angry. It was very suppressive, very, good though in the end, because I spent years starting at 9 years old, figuring out a way to get out of that family and how to better my situation and everything. It's one of those situations where, I remember even having a conversation with my father at the time, and when I was leaving to graduate, after all of this stuff, and after I went back, with him and everything, just saying, at this point, I'm about to leave, and we can either part ways here and never talk to each other again, right? Or this is something that we're going to have to talk about and work through and that kind of thing. So, the foster situation though was hands down the only and best time that I really found out what a true family was and what to set my benchmarks up against and how to treat children. We had a Christmas tree that was up. I think we had a Christmas tree. We had a Valentine's Day tree, a St. Patrick's Day tree, all the way down to a 4th of July tree. And then it came.
I love it. So
Yeah.
it's just the ornaments changed. The tree stayed up all the time.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was always,
My kids get on to me because, March will roll around and I'm like, I still want my tree. Can I have it a little longer? I think I just need to get more ornaments or, not have multiple trees. I might have a few trees that I put up every year. They're like, okay, Mom, can we un-Christmasify the house? All right, I like this idea. I might have to go with multiple.
it's great for kids. And I have a feeling, because I'm always, working to keep the tree up, year round and everything. So I'm sure I was probably pressing for that, but it was so cool just to, have normalness and, just to have a Christmas, have a, normal holidays, go off on camping trips, baking stuff in the kitchen, with an adult. So that gave me a very different understanding of what adults were supposed to do with kids and how to treat them and everything. Because, I've had I have a feeling what also contributed to the foster care was because I did have a babysitter that my parents would send me to when they were going out and everything. And I told them not to send me back there because he was definitely abusing the 5-year-old who was like the grandfather in the babysitter's house. And I remember telling them, don't send me to this person. And they kept sending me there, even to spend the night and everything. And they just didn't believe me about what was happening there, and my mother's, of course, boyfriend, we had a situation with that too. And I'm just like, I remember to this day when that stuff was happening, going into the bathroom that night and just being like, if I say anything, he's going to hurt us. That was like the whole memories of what I was having with this. So as a 9-year-old, I'm pretty sure a lot of these conversations came up, which landed me there, which also set me up to where I could have possibly been adopted at the time too. So those conversations over time, obviously I had them as an adult with my mother and with my parents. But those unresolved issues, they have to, come to the surface, and handling them and having those confrontational discussions so that the healing can begin, or the agree to disagree kind of conversations also can be taking place. But
yeah, it's really important. I think that so many people don't realize that by the time we're 7, so much of our personality and so much of what we become as a human being are ingrained in us. And it's those younger years that tend to create so much of the anxiety and different things. And I always feel so bad because my daughter has anxiety. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not perfect. I probably screwed up more times than I can count, but I love you. And can I help you now? Can you just scream at me and tell me everything you want to say? And let's just get it all out on the table, and I will take it all, and I will just sit there and you get it out. Because I don't want you 30, 40 years like me having there and sitting there crying my eyes out, trying to figure out how did this happen and where did it come from? And those kind of, that it's soul searching and it's freeing. And I hope that we can get that for kids younger so that we don't have to go through so much of it and feel so much pain later on for things that really just had nothing to do with us. They were done to us, not for us in a sense, right? One way or the other.
I just don't understand. Imagine if your daughter came to you saying that this, that, and the other happened, and you're like, I don't believe you.
That's, there are not even words for that. And
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you had to go through it. There's nothing that anybody can say that can change the fact that I don't believe you is not acceptable. And I think that a lot of that dominating personality and the submissiveness that your mom and anybody else he was dating or married to felt, it was life or death if they accepted it or said something different. So I don't give them any credit for it. And I can't believe that he still is saying it. I don't believe you, but he would have to accept responsibility. And sometimes people just can't seem to do that. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So we're in high school, got a 5-year boyfriend. Things are, I think, going a little better. We're very tenacious, obviously. So school, is that important to you?
Absolutely. I graduated with a 4.6 GPA, and I also received an award for never missing a day of school.
Wow. All right. So you fueled all of that into just, I've got to get out of here. I'm going to college. I'm getting here. It's going to happen. Right. So you shut your mouth, put your books down, or, just put your mind in everything you needed to and got it done.
Well, I mean, television told me that I was getting a car for my 16th birthday and that I would have a college fund, right? So that's what I thought was just what every kid would have. And so I remember asking my parents about that. And they said, no, we don't have any of that for you, right? None of it. And so at that point, that's whenever I went and I started figuring out, I'm like, what's going to happen here? And so I figured it out at, a very young age. Whenever, this was happening, I'm like, crap. I'm like, I got to figure it. Otherwise it's the military or it's a scholarship. Those are the only two ways that I'm getting out of here. Right. Yep. And because I'm like, okay, well, let me go ahead and look at grants, scholarships, all that kind of stuff first. And then military, when you graduate, that was going to be my final straw. Right. So if the grants and the scholarships didn't work out, but luckily, I was pretty motivated, right? And the scholarship worked out, and I went ahead and did graduate with one, went to college with one, and was in a really bad car accident where I ended up actually missing the mark with my grades and losing that scholarship.
What?
Yeah. So, broke my back, had a plate and 5 screws put in my ankle. I'd gashed my head to the point. I remember thinking whenever this accident happened, I'm just like, I'm done, and that's when I had my near-death experience and everything, with a lot of this stuff. But imagine, not being able to run.
Go back, a near-death experience. Please talk to us a little bit about that.
So when the car accident happened, it was pretty bad. My dad went through a stop sign and we had things on the back of it, but it was a 3-car pileup. And I looked out and my mother got helicoptered out. I knew something was wrong with me. I remember just getting out of the vehicle because I thought it was going to blow up. I looked up in front. I saw my grandfather and my father had hit the windshield and they were all slumped over, and just, you could see the bodies like having hit so hard that, how the windshields push out and everything. And I looked out whenever I was climbing out of the vehicle, and I saw the other people hanging out of like the passenger windows and stuff, like just no movement, like everyone was dead. So it was interesting. And I remember laying in the grass and the whole life flashing before your eyes. That stuff did happen. Looking back on it, the time frame took about 5 minutes, according to the paramedics and everything, because whenever I finally came to, I was asking questions about it. But I had a choice. And the pain was so bad. And after reviewing everything and literally weighing out everything, you had a choice. Like, are you going to stay? Are you going to go? And so I did come to the point where I was like, I'm out of here. I'm done. I can't take this pain anymore. I'm done. And so I went to wherever you go, and I will tell you this, it was like unplugging your pain body from like the wall or something. And it felt amazing. It was the most beautiful, words can't even describe the feeling of wherever I was. And I was in the same ambulance as my father, and I did hear him because I thought he was dead, but somehow he was in the same ambulance as me. And when I heard his voice, I needed to come back and say some things to him. And I did. And then I couldn't get back. Okay. Oh. Yeah. I was like, gosh, dang it. And I was really disappointed with all of that. But, you know, I guess I still had to come back for stuff. But when the death part happened, I realized a lot of things, that I'm not scared of death anymore, more like how you're going to die. Right. I also realized that, people don't really die, because once I was pretty much having my near-death experience, everybody was there. It's just these eyes that we have in this body can't see those people. So they're still there. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I thought that when people died, you know, they went to heaven and went to all the, you know, and I guess wherever I went to, everybody was there, like even people I didn't know and all that kind of good stuff. But it felt beautiful. It was wonderful. And you know, I remember thinking, wow, this was like the best choice I ever made. But whenever I went back, I couldn't get back. But now I've lived my life, luckily at a young age, with that near-death experience, fearless of death, right? And knowing that when people do pass and transition over, that they're in a wonderful place. You know, heaven is an understatement of the word of what I felt. And I think that made a big, huge difference too, of how I play the game of life. And I would say, you know, listening to everyone, you know, we're losing her. We're like, I could hear myself dying. It was the weirdest thing. But amazing. I mean, I will tell you, that's probably, I mean, hands down, that was the pivotal point of having that near-death experience, of living life very differently.
So now, okay, see, I've got chills. I swear, every single episode, I'm like, I have chills because everybody's stories are so powerful, and this is amazing. Okay, so you're back. You have words to say. God was certainly not done with you yet. Things were just getting started. So you've got a broken back.
Yep.
You're not in college.
No, I'm in college. Like,
oh, you in college?
It was like my first year. Actually, my first or second year of college whenever this happened.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but you know, obviously I had to take off some schooling, and I remember the medications. That's when that started coming into play, because we ended up, trying to figure out the pain medicine with it, because they were actually doing chiropractic work on me with a broken back. We found out. So I got stuck in that HMO loop, I guess, as you call it, where you're just given medication and everything after an accident, but no one does any tests to see what's actually wrong with you. And I remember finally crushing up pain medicine in my mouth, because I couldn't run or anything. I was having sciatica pain going down my legs and everything. And I sent a written certified letter to my doctor and said, do whatever tests you need to do, because there is something wrong with me. And I guess because I did it in writing, certified letter, they actually did the tests. And that's when they found out I had broken my back. Yeah.
All that time.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't check to see if you had a broken back. I swear to you, the system, I just smile. I'll let you, I left something out on mine. I fell off a balcony, trashed.
Oh my
college.
God.
It was just one of those lovely other events that I got into, right? And I fractured 3 vertebrae in my back, my pelvis, sternum, and dislocated my elbow.
Yeah.
They tried to send me home the very next day.
Yep.
I stood up and tried to breathe while I'm standing on fractured vertebrae, a fractured pelvis and sternum, and fall over. Thank God my mom at the time was strong enough to catch me. She caught me and she's like, you are not sending my daughter home. You're putting her in an x-ray machine. You need to figure out what the heck is going on here. You're not sending her home. Yeah. So I ended up being there for another week because they had to figure out what to do. They couldn't send me anywhere. I'm like, that was a mess, but I totally get it. So, all right.
Oh, and get a load of this. So when this happened, right? And so I am like out of my mind with being in the ER and everything. I rattle off my ex-boyfriend's phone number as an emergency contact, because remember, my entire family's been wiped out in this accident, right? I got everybody slumped up in the front. My mom's been helicoptered out. I rattle off my ex-boyfriend's phone number, and guess who I get to stay with?
Him.
Yes.
Oh God, no.
Oh yeah. That happened. And I tell you what, could things get any worse? You know what I mean? I'm just like, And then of course, I'm working on healing. My family is like, in the ICU and everything. And then I've got him over here bringing in girlfriends and dating like in front of me on purpose to like, rattle me and everything. And I was just getting angry, and I was just like, look, I only want a friend right now. Just, everything's a little cray at the moment. So, but yeah, that also, that happened. Now I'm thinking about, I'm just like this one thing after a freaking another. I'm just like, give me a freaking break.
So let's talk about breaks. Did you graduate high school or college?
Yes, I did.
And what did you get your degree in?
I got a bachelor's in public relations. I was pre-med whenever I first came in and everything. Then I had some soul searching and everything, and realized that it was funny. Because I'm like, I can't sit here and count pills in a room all day long, right? Or, and I was also shadowing a doctor, and everything was good until someone came in with their nose on a platter, and I about passed out. Okay. And like I wanted to go and shadow the ER doctor just to make sure this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Okay. But what ended up happening actually is I started doing real estate in college as well, because I couldn't make my rent. So I was having to ask my parents for money, my dad, right? And so I actually got the no down payment Carlton Sheets program, where it was $9.99 a month. I was like, I'll give it a whirl for a summer. So I'm in college. All of this crap is happening. I'm stuck in the bed, right? Chewing up painkillers to be able to walk around or do anything. And I just thought to myself, while in college, I'm going to go be a leasing agent, because that has something to do with real estate. And I'm going to get taught and paid how to do real estate at the same time, to be able to study while I'm in the model place, right? And I pretended, of course, for that place to be something that I owned as I'm doing this. But in college, I had a little bit of a challenge, because I took that one little tool of lease options, right? And this was a crazy time. And I just was focusing on that as a hobby on the side while I was doing my schooling. And I started making more money than my professors. And so I started losing confidence in my college education, you know what I mean? So I pretty much went to the counselor. I said, look, what can I graduate with at this point that's going to help me with real estate? And public relations was the closest one, so I could do it and graduate on time versus going, to med school. Since I realized that was not going to be my forte, since I no longer could handle blood or parts or anything like that.
You're like, no, thank you.
Something happened, because I used to love horror movies, and then in the ER, when that stuff started coming in, I about lost it. So that's how the transition happened. And, I started doing, obviously finding another way to be independent, so I wouldn't have to ask my dad for money.
It's the high heel sprint of the century going on right now.
I've never seen such a determined group of high heel sprinters.
They've got the heel of the tiger, that's for sure.
They're all in European heels.
Competing today are 1-inch heels, 2-inch heels, 3-inch heels, even a 4-incher. And they're on their mark. And they're off.
Good form as they round the first curve.
How can they run like that in those European heels?
It's the cork foundation in the shoes. It acts like a natural shock absorber.
If they can run on these heels, they can do anything.
They're pounding that pavement like a herd of gazelle. So far, nobody's tumbled to the ground.
They're approaching the finish line.
Hey, you'd look good in a pair of those heels.
I would look fantastic, and I could run like the wind.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I could keep running in these 4-inch heels all day long.
I thought for sure I would break an ankle, but I could run all day.
Fall in love with heels again. You can't beat the feel of a European heel. European heels. Heels without the hurt.
Because that was also some, after leaving there and losing the scholarship because of the car accident. And then I was able to replace the scholarship money with some financial aid. And I, of course, got some assistance with my dad getting that, that paperwork in with me. And I was able to get a Pell Grant. I remember.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then, right. That's where I had to work. And I decided if I'm going to have a job, I'm going to, work at an apartment complex. And that's kind of where a lot of the real estate success started and how I became financially free so early at 23.
So now take us through this, because this is very interesting. At 23, your back, is it better yet? Or are you still dealing with mass pain all the time? Or
I am literally working at the apartment complex, and because I'm so good at keeping them full and keeping them leased, and I've built a great relationship with the manager, I would call her and say, hey, I'm having some serious sciatica pain and I can't get up right now, but as soon as my pain medicine kicks in, I'll be into that office. Right. So I'm still managing this pain and like taking these medications and everything. And, just trying to figure it out, finding out the cocktail of how to accept being on medication for the rest of my life. Right. So I'm going through that challenge of, old people take medication. I'm 20 some years old. Why am I taking all of this stuff? Right. So I'm going through that kind of depression as well. And I remember they gave me depression medication prescriptions that I did fill, but I refused to take it.
I took it for a little while and it was awful. You zone out. You're like, da, 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 da. Okay. I'm
already on the pain medicine. I know. I'm like more than my presence is required at work, right? More than, and at school too. And so I remember looking at that prescription and just going, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this one. I'm going to work with the pain meds first, because I physically know that, I've got fractures in my back and herniated discs and everything. And I'm going to work this out first. And I was able to figure it out and have a full recovery in that respect finally. But obviously, going through a lot of this, it was just like desperation.
So now you're 26 because you made your first million at 26.
Yes.
How did that go from being a leasing agent for the apartments to make your first million? Because that's pretty freaking exciting.
I know. So as I'm at the apartment complexes, I was actually there pretty much my entire college career, and I kept them at 100% occupancy for like 7 years. And while I'm there, myself and the manager, she's my mentor at the time, of course, and I was able to talk to her and say, hey, why don't we buy a small apartment complex together? And we'll make sure that it's because whenever I was there as a leasing agent and everything, I made sure that everything I was buying with my hobby was like a 3 or 4 bedroom house. So it wouldn't be competition to the 1 or 2 bedrooms that were there at the apartments. But then guess what? People have babies and they're in a 2 bedroom. Where do they need to go? Right. And so we never had problems, renting out the houses. And I had built the confidence there to be able to know that I could fill anything that I was going to have. And so she said, yes, we put my experience, her experience on a resume, her income, my leasing agent income, which I remember was $4.25, guys. Okay. And pretty much like the rental income I had built up on the side and put that together. And I literally emailed every single bank in town. Every single bank I asked for money for purchasing like this 40-unit apartment complex. And just, I've got the experience. I know how to do this. I've done it with houses, blah, blah, blah. And we're at a 360 unit apartment complex. So the experience and stuff was there. And, the bank couldn't lend to me, but introduced me to a partner. By the way, that partner ended up taking me for $3 million. That was not fun. Okay. Fucking sucked. Excuse my French.
What?
Yeah. So anyway, but it was a good another 7 years. It's weird. Now I'm thinking about it. It was 7 years at the apartment complex, 7 years with this partner, because then he said, well, instead of borrowing the money, how about no payments for 6 months and I'll be your 1/3 partner with you and the other partner. And by the way, he did ask initially, hey, how about it just be me and you? We don't need her. And I was like, I don't do business that way. Right. And he goes, good answer, which looking back on this now, he was already, kind of a snake in the grass with that, but I wouldn't change it for the world because I wouldn't be where I am today without having that experience, and that gullibility. I mean, I was very gullible and I learned a lot from it. And I also learned how to
for $3 million.
Yeah. So
And
like
what
our
does that
portfolio,
leave you dealing with?
bad credit, because I had put everything on my lines for the apartment complexes. And he literally took the money. There was some fraudulent things that he did, which in court, I ended up obviously getting bought out, but I was still taken for $3 million, which, I was destroyed. I was like, this was my family's livelihood. My mom was at the, apartment complex and all this kind of stuff. But luckily I was smart enough to have, covered myself and made sure that I was protected in a lot of different, backup ways to be able to at least come out of this unscathed with myself, other than, bad credit. And I learned a lot, learned a ton, but that was a bad partnership. You name it, all kinds of stuff went down. And then of course, my first year of marriage was having this lawsuit as a huge thing. And then of course, dealing with paying attorneys, handling foreclosures. Okay. All of this stuff was going down. And I was just very fortunate the way it all, played out to where I survived it. I came through it. I handled it. And I learned that you have to communicate really, really well with everybody under the sun to be able to maneuver out of things. Otherwise I could have crawled up and died in the corner,
What would be something that what would be your biggest advice for somebody else who might have been, what are some of the signs you look for when you're dealing with partners? Because you had to get some red signs. I'm learning about this now because, I've got one girlfriend who she got swindled for millions of dollars by somebody. And there's and another one that almost lost her whole entire company to a guy who just talks the talk. And they've done it to so many people, they don't even think about it. And they could probably pass any lie detector test. So what do you tell people and how do you help them make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, I finally, a decade later, took in a new partner. I did ask if they had any criminal background, right? Because I found out my first partner did have criminal background with Ernst & Young, was an auditor there, and had some kind of fraud on his record. Even if that was there as, a person looking to buy their first 40-unit apartment complex, would have I cared? No, but I would have been a little bit more cautious. But remember, I'm young and I am trusting and I am excited and you know what I mean? And so I wouldn't change it for the world in regards to that. But obviously I would have done things a little bit differently, to maneuver through the whole situation. But now I require that my partners aren't partnering in with other people, because the reason for this situation with the past partner was because he did a really bad business deal in a totally different business, not real estate related. And he needed the real estate money to get him, counsel. And
so he robbed Peter to pay Paul.
You got it. Like our portfolio was the thing making money and had the value, and he needed that to keep himself out of trouble with the other business deal. And so I do require my partner to have a real estate license, because I'm like, hey, real estate license, they have to background check everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of helped out. I do that. And then, like I said, making sure that they don't have other partnerships going on that I don't know about. So I can keep a tab on that, because one thing going wrong over, on the right side affects the left side, so I wanted to just keep a very clean space, open communication, and make sure you're picking people with integrity. I mean, if someone's, I saw where he was trying to, push out another person, and, I'm like, I just don't do business like that. So it was really nice now to make sure that you're playing with the right people. and watch. And I watched, don't get me like, I watched years before I ended up actually doing a partnership and getting married to someone in essence in business. Because you have to see if they're going to perform, if they're going to show up, if you can find them, right? Are they doing things in integrity, or are they always trying to work the system? Do they have criminal background? That kind of stuff. And test them, do something like do the same kind of thing, ask if they would do this, that, and the other, and see how they respond to it.
That's extremely good advice, because I've talked to other people and it's very true. You have to test people. You have to see, I hate to say it, you could be the most trusting person in the world and still need to test people, because not everybody comes with that same moral fortitude that you do. And so if you're not taking time to learn about who you're working with, then things happen. And unfortunately, there's just more cases than not that it's women that it's happening to. And I don't know if it's because of our trusting nature, that nurturing in us has a lot to do with it.
I don't think like that. My mentor told me, they're like, the reason you got screwed over is because you don't think like a criminal.
Yeah, we just don't think like it. It's just it's not in our DNA.
Yeah.
Not in my DNA, not in people who I would hang around with and call a friend and somebody I care about. It's not in their DNA.
Yeah.
So let me preface that, because not all women have great DNA. Some of them are not as nice as others, so I don't want to give them all that.
Yeah, but it's also good to have mentors and other people that can vet people for you or with you. Be like, hey, what do you think about this person? And let them go ahead and do some, background checks or interviews and stuff with people, especially when it comes to money. And just, be smart about it as much as you possibly can. But I don't want to live my life jaded. I don't want to live my life, hiding.
And you haven't.
Yeah.
You have completely crushed it. So I know that we've taken a lot of time on this, because I want people to really understand what you've actually accomplished. Yeah. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you're doing now?
Sure.
And what you have to offer? I know you're married.
Yes, I'm happily married for about 15 years now. And I got up to about 500 units, guys. Okay. That's a lot of units. I was flying around and planes were like taxis. Okay. And great experience. I was in multiple states, still am in multiple states investing. Right. But then you do have to ask. And I finally asked with my husband, I'm like, we had a dumpster that was on fire on 4th of July. Right. And, I was pretty much like, okay, well, did we ever just determine how much was enough? Because we're dealing with a dumpster that's on fire right now. It's 4th of July and a sewer backup going down. And, that was the pivoting point when I started to sell some stuff and scale back some stuff and that kind of thing, and determine what was really important to me. Right. And like I said, I went, pretty much a decade with no partners, and just did my own deals and whatever. And then also when that partner came on, we did a 100 house package. So we did that 100 house package together, and currently working on optimizing that 100 house package as we speak. I'm coming the tail end of everything, because we got everything out of code enforcement. It's habitable. And we just refinanced a few of them for 2.2 million, which was 20% of the entire package, right? And we had gotten it for roughly 2.2 million, right? So it's great to have, pretty much 100% returns and everything in real estate. And I pretty much have been also, ever since this all happened to me, I really care about the underdog. I really care about the people that are just getting into this to where they don't make the mistakes, or I can help guide them to not make those mistakes that I went through, and always had or have somebody to lean onto, which is why we do, I give my time 3 times a week along with my team to answer questions. And then of course we've got our Hobby Millionaire Association, where people can learn real estate as a hobby. And I mainly focus, and yes, I would love to shuffle around my rich people, friends' money all the time, kind of, you know what I mean? But I don't really do that. My heart is really with the people that are in corporate or with a job and getting them to have those 5 units, their first 5 units and crossing over that line, because that's the game changer. Once I do that, then after 5 units, I know you guys don't need me anymore. And you start seeing the light, you have an extra $1,000 a month coming in minimum, right? From those 5. And that's also an extra, $100,000 in lending power that you can use to, as a down payment on your next project, or, open up lines. Like there's all kinds of stuff, but the 5 units is the main thing. And in my book also, that's the thing, just do 5 units a year kind of thing. And I push for that. And the legacy that I'm building for everybody is to actually have a brick and mortar where we're purchasing a large apartment complex in Florida. We're going to put it out there, right? With a international airport where people can fly in, and we do the trainings in the apartment complex clubhouses, because it's an unutilized space. And it's also a captive audience of, my team and my tenants, and those individuals that want to fly in to go ahead and train on how to do and replicate what I did. Right.
Wow. That's amazing. That's so cool.
I know.
Right, so I know that you have a group on Facebook that you are just now starting, and you are going to let people come into the group. I know it's a monthly fee on the group. So what's the name of the group, and how can we get people access to it so they can start to learn how to become financially free? And maybe they might not be 23 when they do this, but how many years did it take you?
Yeah. So, I looked at everything, and, 23, I started very young. So I literally started this when I was 16, 17 years old. And remember, I'm also kind of learning and figuring out a possible, like I learned the difference between a real estate agent and a real estate investor, right? Because the agents work for the investors mainly. So I kind of knew to figure that part, out. So for me, it pretty much took about, 7 years, doing that aspect of things,
Most of the people who work with you, they're getting it done in less than a year, aren't they?
Like Curtis is one of my partners right now, like my best partner ever right now. He's the one that we brought in finally after, a decade, and he was coming to the Hobby Millionaire meetings religiously. And, we ended up doing the big package together. Mind you, he ended up losing his corporate job, in his 60s. Right. And so it was when he came to me with that too, I'm looking at it going, I don't know. Like I could say no, and I don't know what his family would do, right? Because he's the breadwinner. Yeah. He's got a stay-at-home wife.
So your book is it The Hobby Millionaire?
Real Estate Hobby Millionaire, yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that Bonnie said that if you want to, we're going to have a page up where you can go and put your email in and your information in. And if you want to get a copy of this book, then she will send you the book. You'll just have to pay for the postage. And if you want to get into her group, we're going to have all the information there for you to get into the group. I could keep you here all day because I'm also a real estate agent. So it's fascinating to me. So it's not good because I could be like, okay, 3 hours later and we're still having this conversation.
I know, but look at this. We teach real estate agents how to become their own best client, right?
Nice. Okay. You and I are going to be getting together very soon. I've got a lot of questions that I know that other people will too. Bonnie, it was so great to have you on today. And I'm going to have a follow-up because I might need to learn a little bit more.
Sure. Obviously.
So, thank you again for being our guest. It's been amazing having you here today.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.